Hello, this is Kara from Cathar Tarot. I am not doing many flip-through videos now, and usually now I don't do a flip-through video if it's a deck that has been out for a while and there are lots of flip-through videos out there. I don't think I'm adding anything to the conversation necessarily, except in this case. I'll start right off the bat. This is the Cathar Tarot. Now, some people say Cathar. There are different ways that people say it. I say Cathar. The Secret Wisdom of the Perfecti. This is a John Matthews deck with art by Will Kinghan. And the art, from what I've seen of it so far, looks gorgeous. I have not looked through this deck yet. And I intentionally did not fully watch flip-through videos. I did do a search to see that I did watch Simon's video before I clicked buy, because I found this on thrift books for, less than half of what it normally costs. And the box it had a rough passage. The exterior package was like ripped all along here, almost all the way open. It was perforated, so something had happened to smash and stretch it. So the box is a little bit smashed, but hey, less than half price. I didn't expect perfection in the first place. So the other thing is, I've said before, I really love the Byzantine Tarot, although I dislike the fact that John Matthews switched the elements on the wands and swords. I'm not fond of that. And I also, if they were going to do it, they did it in a confusing way. The images remained the traditional images for the wands, but you were supposed to infer the element of air, and the images for the swords remained very close to RWS images for swords, but you had to have to translate that to the element of fire. And I understand why they did it, but then the enactment of it was, if you were going to switch them, I would have switched the imagery anyway. It would have made it easier to interpret, I think. And that's my trouble with some of his decks, is I think he gets so involved in whatever the topic is that the logistics of actually reading the deck gets lost in the shuffle a little bit. So I approach this with trepidation. I intentionally have not watched many videos. Dragonfly Dilly is a huge fan of his, and even she acknowledges that his decks definitely are often, they have to be study decks because you can't just pick them up and read them. And sometimes we really would like that. We'd like to just be able to take it out of the box and use it. But I mean, in for a penny, in for a pound. With John Matthews, that's not how he does it. I did watch, as I said, before I clicked the button, I did watch Simon's video at the Hermit's Cave, because his was more recent, and maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and he had gotten it on a half-price shelf or something, so he had gotten a good deal on it. And then I saw that, even, I think it was 8 years ago, Ethany had done one, and since then, there are probably hundreds of flip-throughs. So, but this is kind of my wheelhouse. When I was on public radio, I did a series. I had a daily series at noon, where I would try to keep it short, but I would talk for about 3 to 5 minutes. And that would be the introduction to a piece of music, different selections of music. So the work that I did, I was told when I left there, be sure you take a copy of that so that you can use it elsewhere. So I was actually told that. So I felt free to turn them into videos for listening and watching on YouTube. So they're on my other YouTube channel, Cara Doll Russell. And the playlist is Courtly Love and the Cult of the Virgin. So I think it's close to 30 episodes, taking weekends out, because it was only 5 days a week at noon. And then I have links in them to almost all of them. I have a link to the music that section of the series led to. So you can either just listen to the information as a series, or you can go and listen to the piece of music that goes with each one. Not all of it medieval music. It was because some of it was, you know, in the Romantic era, a lot of classical music was composed that evoked medieval music. So there is quite a variety, as well as major performances by solo artists of medieval music. So there's a large variety of music in those links after each of the mini lectures. And I was specifically focusing on the time period between 1000 and 1200, when there was a particular rise in the power of women. And my initial impetus was I wanted to know which came first, the veneration of Mary or the social power of women. And it seemed as if they happened hand in, you know, now that I've watched done the whole series with research, and I had a wonderful research assistant, that they actually happened side by side. And that's the way things do happen organically, is that it was a rare period when women had a great deal more power and autonomy. And it was echoed in the royal families. And so that kind of had permutations throughout the society. And then it was echoed in the religious life, where this is where the veneration of Mary really took off during this time period. So they all happened in synchronous, you know, timing. And the Cathars, being one of the subgroups of Christianity that allowed women into leadership, became at least one of the features of the lectures in this time period. So all that to say, that's where this crosses my wheelhouse of interest. So once again, he does change some of the suits. See that the box was it was really dinged, you know, so it's amazing that the book wasn't dinged in transit. And he switches the suits again. He has the minor arcana are not in this order, but love, cups, swords, wisdom, and shields. And they are kind of changed completely. So let me just go to that page and explain what he did with them. So the Book of Shields represents the strength of faith. The Book of Swords representing the sharp edge of truth. The Book of Love representing both human and divine eros. And the Book of Wisdom representing both the dedication to Sophia and the gnosis of the Cathars. And there's a translation of a quote from Pierre Maury from 1324, quote, "In heaven there are angels and all the good men and good women," end quote. And that's a quote from 1324. But so having detailed the suits, this is not going to be a deck that you can just pick up and read normally, although you could force it on it. I mean, people do that with the Solabusca. They just force regular Rider-Waite-Smith on it and read it that way. So, you know, you can do what you want. But if you want to do what he intended, the intention is different. And when I saw this description of the suits, I thought, well, thank goodness that I've already unpacked the William Blake Tarot, because that has one of the suits being spirit. And so I've kind of wrapped my mind around that and what it means in terms of reading. And so that will stand me in good stead for reading this one. And then the major arcana have all completely different titles, which is what he does, which I loathe. I loathe. I just, to me, and I will, I'll say what I've said before. To me, that makes it, it's not a tarot anymore. It is a study of another subject in the form of a tarot. And if you've watched me at all, you know I have them. I have the Wisdom of Place, where the book came first, and then they kind of did a version of the book in tarot form. But it's not, there's no way you can call it a regular tarot deck. And I also have Wild Enchantments, where the book and the deck were created together as an oracle deck. But again, it's an oracle deck that's meant to help you learn the book. It's not meant for reading. And unfortunately, I feel that way about a lot of John Matthews decks. The Holy Grail, I just wanted to throw out the window. But part of that was because the cardstock was lousy. So let's get to the cards. Okay, hooray. The cardstock is nicer on this. It's like half oracle weight, but thicker and stiffer than plain cards. And we all could use something thicker and stiffer. Ooh. So I'll go back to religion. So these majors are all renamed, and I kept my camera close so you can see these. I think I'll do it this way. It's a little more light there. So instead of the Magician, the Parfait. Now, Cathars were French, so a lot of the terms will be French, although with Williams, I'll assume he'll kind of have anglicized French, so we'll see. Lady Wisdom. Escarlement de Foi. I'm going to look that one up. And he does, see here, he does have the normal title, the Empress. The Empress is the ruler of the soul. Escarlement de Foi embodies human love, but that of the mother rather than the power of knowledge and wisdom. So he's also tweaking the meanings here too. The Emperor, Raymond de Treneville. So we have Lucifer right here, right instead of the Hierophant. The Hierophant represents a person or an inner impulse whose wisdom is supreme, someone to whom you may turn unhesitatingly for advice and direction. Yet there is also a sense, as we see in the Cathar interpretation of Lucifer, which tempers the belief in this person's position of power with caution. And many of the French decks from the 1700s had a similar negative idea associated with either the Hierophant or the Hermit or both. The Love Feast for the lovers. 7 is Ascension instead of the Chariot. The Meloramentum, Justice. The Hermit, the Grail Knight. And that's where, with medieval stuff, Grail Knights as hermits doesn't really ring true for me, because they may have been hermits away from women, but they were far from hermits in terms of men in their own manosphere of that time period. This was the manosphere, and even though it had a spiritual component, there were a lot of manosphere components to that as well, which were not spiritual or positive. The Wheel of Life. the convenenza, strength, the Hanged Man, the Endura. This reminds me of some of the images from the Green Man story. Very recognizable one there. The Apparelamentum, Temperance. The Demiurge. So the Hierophant and Satan cards are kind of blended, reversed. The Demiurge would be what we would, I think, today call an animal urge, or our animal instincts. The Tower, Montsegur. Little fiery fish in the sky. I'm loving this artwork. Will Kingan has a great reputation, and I am, loving this artwork and how close he's approximating medieval, but also adding to it to make it more clear. The Star, fully immersed in the water. The World of Shadows. Now see, that would be something that's very easy to understand as the moon. Interesting that these mountains almost look like monks or other people. The World of Light, easy to understand as the sun. The Last Judgment. Now, if you aren't interested in Christian history, this isn't going to be for you. The Cathars may have been considered to be, I'm blanking. This is what happens with my stress brain. They were not mainstream church beliefs, but they did consider themselves Christians. Their take on Christianity was quite different, and he has a wonderful 4 to 5 page condensed version of who the Cathars were and what they believed as far as regular beliefs. But it's like Gnosticism. It's a part of Christianity. You can't really separate Christianity from it. The Consolamentum, the world. Okay. So those are the majors. So right away you see some similarities and some changes. Okay, now the suit of shields represents faith. And he does not tell us, he does give us a season of spring for the shields. So I think that would equate with wands, but, we'll see, because he doesn't specifically tell us that. Two of shields. It's a little confusing because we've got a third one there, but that's part of the picture, and these are the suit. Three of shields. Now, what I'm looking for is, as I look at this, we already have swords and cups. So that would mean that shields, if we're looking for a direct equation, we're looking to see, is it more like wands or more like pentacles? So let me just read what he has for the Five of Shields. And there's about 2/3 of a page on each one of the minors. It's a decent, it's not a little white book like Los Scarabaeos, but it's little. Five of Shields. Although this is a well-aspected card, there is an inherent danger that overconfidence could lead to a breakdown in communication and a lesser degree of success. Since the main thrust of the card's meaning is wealth, this may not be surprising, for the Cathar's wealth was to be shared. Hence, the credent here is giving away his worldly goods. We associate wealth with power, which may seem good on the surface, but often hides a multitude of weaknesses. The reversed meanings, dispute, litigation, and conflict make this clear. We need to be careful of the cornucopia and be aware that it may cause problems. Now remember, this is a 5. So if it were the 5 of Wands, it would be kind of discord. If it were the 5 of Pentacles, it would be poverty. So it's really not relating to either one of those directly. The 6 of Shields, good news, progress, triumph, domestic and family life. So you could, going through these, just kind of make up your mind, I'm going to consider this to be Pentacles, or I'm going to consider this to be Wands, and read it that way. And then just use the picture to give you an intuitive hit that adds to your normal meaning. But clearly that's not the intention of the deck. This, if you're using this deck the way he wants you to, you read a completely unique meaning to this set of cards. And there are only so many decks that I'm willing to do that with. I bought this deck knowing what I was getting into. I knew what he does, and I knew what I was getting into. I also knew I may only like the artwork and not like the deck concept. And again, it was, you know, it was really cheap because it was at thrift books. So okay, so that's the shields. And then he has a cup on his shield. So swords, I would look for swords to be more straightforward. And so let's see. Reminds me of that Four of Swords, certainly reminds me of the Four of Cups card in the Rider-Waite-Smith. Five of Swords is, to me, reminiscent also of the Five of Cups. The 9 and 10 certainly seem similar. Let me see what it says about the Lady of Swords. The traditional meanings of the card suggest someone with a clear discernment, independence, and the ability to survive. This is also the Widow card in many older decks. The need for reassessment, a sense of impartiality is implied, along with the feelings of loss and wasted opportunity. So this is very much in keeping with the traditional swords meanings. This is the suit of love, the suit of cups. And see, here we do have, you know, children playing, which could be this, the memories. But then we also have this image, which is much more like the normal Five of Pentacles, the beggar. So we have various shades of meaning. I do like this as an image of the choices, the overabundant choices for the Seven of Cups. The burning bush for the Nine of Love. So that's a deck that is a suit, that I could read without going to the guidebook. Now again, wisdom is either Wands or Pentacles. So the Six of Wands would be celebration, and the Six of Pentacles would be generosity. So this is more like Pentacles. We actually have many coins in these images. Nine of Wisdom, being blessed. That certainly, again, would fit more with Pentacles than with Wands. So since this suit is readable as Pentacles, I probably would try to approach this as Wands, Swords, Cups, and Pentacles, at least in my initial working with it, just as a way of making things easier for myself. And then as I learned more, I would start incorporating what he has. But it's also very clear. He means for you to basically learn a new system. And this is what this is why I say these are decks. His decks tend to be the study of something else in the form of cards. And there definitely are people who would rather study cards, and because they think it breaks it down in a way that's easier. You know, it's an educational system. Flashcards are certainly a well tried and true educational system. So fascinating, and definitely glad I was able to find it, but also very glad I was able to find it at a bargain price. I think I would be unhappy if I had paid full price for it because of those. It is, by virtue of the fact that it is a completely different topic in card form, it is definitely not going to be in the top of my use list. Is it another medieval deck that will go with all of my medieval collection? Yes, it is. And for those of you who follow me, you know this is my area of interest. It's the art is marvelous. And I will say, in defense of the Holy Grail, the art is wonderful. And that concept of adjoining telling a story when you lay the cards out in an adjoining way is wonderful, but the cardstock is like copier paper. It's horrible. And that made me so angry when I opened that and found that out. Other people who don't care about the cardstock will just be happy that it's beautiful artwork and to follow the grail. But enough of that. This is one this definitely augments my medieval themed decks, as well as my, what I would call my esoteric decks, which study a different topic in the form of tarot. So I hope this was informative to you and perhaps a fresh take and some new viewpoints on this deck that if you already have it, maybe it'll make you want to get it out again and look at it again, or simply enjoy the artwork. This is Cara from Cathar Tarot, and if you have this deck, I'd love to hear what you think about it. Are you using it? How are you using it? Let me know what you think. Thank you.